So, since you brought up social media, let's talk about that just a second, because I know your approach to social media is a little bit different than the average.
Yeah.
What are you doing with social media, and why, and what has been the outcome?
Well, this has to do with what we were just talking about. I had restricted my social media access in the past, mostly for productivity purposes, because, it's easy to waste time on there. And if I understand it correctly, they're even designed to hijack your pleasure system so that you become addicted to them. So I had kind of deliberately restricted my access just to get stuff done. But then COVID hit, and I came home, and that span of time when I was home, it was kind of like I hit the reset button on my life. And I just kind of had a big refresher. And I started to think a little bit more clearly about a few things. And I believe around the time, I think it was George Floyd's death that affected this. Something happened on social media. It was on Instagram mostly, of people posting a black box. And I had never witnessed anything like that, just in terms of the peer pressure of it. And I saw all of my friends doing it, and I didn't know exactly what it was meant to achieve. And although I can't articulate it fully, something about it really disturbed me. And I said, that's it. And I deleted all of my social media accounts. And
so roughly a year ago,
yeah,
you deleted Instagram, you deleted Facebook, you deleted Twitter, you deleted
Snapchat.
Snapchat
Came a little bit later, but yeah, that one too.
Okay. So I just want to be specific about what you have gotten rid of.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been your experience having been off of social media for a year, and what can you comment on that somebody listening that may be thinking about doing the same thing? What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, this is anecdotal, but I will tell you that it's one of the best decisions that I've ever made. It has affected positive changes in my productivity, in my walk with the Lord, in my relation with other people, and the list goes on. I have a bit more of a sense now that I live in the real world. Mm-hmm. And there's this interesting theory that I've heard that I find very compelling, that there's a war going on between people that have real world primacy and people that have internet primacy in terms of the domains in which they live most of their lives or have their most meaningful engagements. And that's if it's right, the implications are huge. And I would say if you're going to try to do that, or if you're considering it, I would say don't take the leap of deleting everything just yet. I would say take a month off, or if you can't stand to do that, take a week off and just see what happens. Now,
and do it with somebody too, for accountability.
Yeah.
Because when you did that, it actually came right off the heels of you agreed to do a social media fast with me. Mm-hmm. So I would recommend find a buddy to do it with if you can.
And let's say you do it for 2 weeks. When those 2 weeks are over, write down what happened in those 2 weeks. Because if you don't write it down, it doesn't matter what happened in those 2 weeks, you will forget it. We are very forgetful creatures. This thing that Hannah's talking about, Hannah and I, we did a week of fasting from social media and entertainment. Yeah. And I wrote in my journal what happened that week. And every time I go back and read it, I just did it yesterday, my mind is blown and I think, my goodness. So you have to, if you gain insights, you have to record them somewhere because you will forget them. And if you decide that it's doing more harm than good, then just let it go. And here's a fun thing that you can do that I did. Don't tell anyone and see if they notice. I'll bet you that almost no one will. And the reason that almost no one will is because, unfortunately, you're not as important as social media would have you believe that you are.
Well, that's pretty insightful. I guess I won't hang here for just a second because I do think it's a very important topic. I don't want to get hung up on it. Just a couple more questions along these lines.
Can I say something before you
Yeah.
do? I need to throw in a caveat here.
Yeah.
When I say you're not as important, what I mean is you're not, your ideas and what it is that you have to say does not bear as much import in the minds of others as you might think that it does. We have this joke, we had it back years ago, because my brother Jacob, we took our Instagram accounts very seriously, and we would say things like, my 43 followers need me. They need to see this. They need to hear what I have to say. But apart from that, I believe that the things that we do are extremely important, and maybe even more important than we can possibly fathom. So I'm not saying that you're not important. I'm just saying maybe your social media presence is not so important.
Yeah, I think the point you're trying to make is that we have come to put so much importance on what we present on social media, right? How we look to others on social media. In reality, what we're saying is the facade that we present via social media is actually more important than the real person that we are outside of social media. So we get out of kilter in that facade becomes more important to us than the real person. The real person is really the important part. What goes on social media doesn't really carry that much weight because we imagine that our influence is a lot larger than it actually is. So for people who may be scared of deleting or getting off of social media, I mean, you're a 21-year-old in a social media world. You don't have social media. So, I mean, how are you surviving? I mean, people would think, I say that in jest, but many people think, hey, I wouldn't be able to keep up with those that are important to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what was going on in the world. Social media has created some kind of a fear in us that if we were to get off of there, we would somehow be missing out on some part of the world. I mean, can you address that at all for someone who's, you've been off for a year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I could be wrong about this, but I think the whole idea that social media helps you keep up with your friends is a bit of an illusion. You can keep up with the major events in their life, sure, but does it tell you how they're actually doing? No, it doesn't. I really don't think it does anyway. Maybe in some cases. But what I do to keep up with my friends is either I will, reach out to them and, maybe go out and get some coffee with them or just spend some time with them. But, I have a lot of friends now that live in other states, is I'll just call them and talk with them for about 20 minutes and see how they're doing. And in my opinion, that 20-minute interaction is so much richer in terms of maintaining a relationship with somebody than 20 years of being friends with them on Facebook.
People need to hear that.
Well, and
That's
what
crucial.
came to my mind right there is probably the first thing that people think when they hear that is, I ain't got 20 minutes to call somebody. But if you don't think that,
Yes.
then take a look at how long you spend on Facebook or Instagram or other social media apps, right? If you're on there on any kind of routine basis, I would bet you're on there for at least 20 minutes a day, right? At least 20 minutes a day.
Minimum.
And many, as I'm sure some of my listeners know, it's much in excess of that. So if you were not on social media, you would automatically have 20 minutes a day to pick up the phone and call somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If you did that every day, then that's 365 people that you actually had a real conversation with over the course of a year.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And there's also a fear that your friend network will shrink, you know, and as I said earlier in the conversation, you're always saying no to something, and that includes relationships. You can be friends with 5,000 people on Facebook, but you can't be friends with 5,000 people in real life. And what I decided was that if I couldn't muster the time and energy to maintain a relationship with somebody outside of social media, then that was a relationship that it was okay for me to let go.
Well, what about one other question, then we'll get off of social media, but I mean, you're an aspiring artist. I know prior to getting off social media, you would post, clips and different things on social media. You had made some connections with people on there. Just speak to that for just a second about how you see that impacting your career as you try to build a presence in the music industry.
Yeah, well, if I were to ever launch out as a recording artist, I do see myself creating an artist page on social media. I think that's actually a positive use of social media. I think that's a good way. It's outreach in terms of fans and that sort of thing. And you're right. I did post a lot of video clips, particularly of me doing music, but I still have my YouTube account. So more or less what I've decided is to kind of take all of that energy and just put it in one place. And that's kind of my solution to that problem. And there's no shortage of traffic on YouTube. And I found, at least in my own life, the artists that I follow the most seriously, that is most of where I consume their filmed content.
Okay, very good.